opening statement from Coach Dykes, then we'll go to questions.
All right, thank you guys for being here. Number one, appreciate it. Yeah, big day for TCU football today. It's amazing how quickly all of this has changed. Typically, this used to take place in February, and now, you know, we've gotten our entire recruiting class signed. 29 signees, 25 high school players, 4 junior college players, 20 of which will be here in January and enroll early. So things have really changed in the recruiting front. I mean, it's just such a different world now than it used to be when it comes to recruiting. Things happen so much faster. Just the fact that 20 of the 29 will be here enrolled in school in January allows those guys to get off to a fast start. So big deal, man. This is a culmination of a lot of work, a lot of planning. You know, a number of these players we've been recruiting for 3 years now. The 3 years that we've been here, some of these guys we targeted, you know, very early when we got hired here at TCU, and have watched those guys grow and progress. And we're fortunate to get them signed today, and excited about the group. I mean, I think it's exactly what we needed. You know, when you sit down, we talk about it all the time. Our goal is to always sign a football team. And what I mean by that is, you know, just a roster. You look at it and you say, okay, we got a quarterback, we got a running back, we got a tight end, we've got a number of offensive linemen, a number of defensive linemen, linebackers, corners, safeties. And so just really, really fired up about this group. The best thing about this collection of young people, I think, is just their character. Really proud to bring these guys in. You know, sometimes in recruiting classes you have kind of highly rated guys that are a little bit of fluff. You know, you kind of go, well, we're going to take this kid, take a flyer on him. He's a heavily recruited guy. He may have academic issues. He may have character issues. He may have been injured, whatever the case may be. You know, we didn't do that. There's no fluff in this class. I mean, these are legitimate dudes that are going to make this program better. And so really, really excited about it. And again, it's credit to, you know, to our coaching staff, to our recruiting staff, to, you know, our player personnel department. They did a tremendous job of identifying these guys, and then the coaches went out and signed them. So fired up about it, and can't wait for these guys to get here in January and go to work.
Coach, I know you said in the past you don't look a lot at rankings, but right now you guys have the top Big 12 class. What does that kind of mean to you? Do you guys use that, you know, pitching to these recruits, say, hey, come join this?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think when the group started to come together, you know, you could see we got off to a fast start, you know, and so I think that helped. You know, when some significant guys kind of jumped in the boat early, that always creates some momentum for your recruiting class. And you know, the problem, it's a good thing when they jump in the boat, but the problem is now everybody's on them. You know, if they weren't on them before, they're on them, and you know, you have a target on your chest in terms of, you know, the way people recruit. And so it's it was an awesome job holding these guys together and continuing to add to the class and chip away. And you know, we had some couple of defections rather, the guys that left the recruiting class, and the great thing was, I think when that happened, we replaced them with better guys, and you know, guys that fit our program and our mentality and kind of who we are. So just really, really fired up about it. As I said earlier, I mean, I think these guys share the same values that we believe are really important, and fired up about it.
Which position group do you feel, or which position groups do you feel like really got stronger with this class?
You know, I don't know. It's a good question. To me, when you sign a high school recruiting class, I mean, it's always offensive line and defensive line are the guys that you know are going to be here and develop, and so you have to bring in the right body types. You know, you look at the offensive linemen we brought in; they're all really long guys. They're big guys. We think they play physical. You know, we got several tackle bodies. Got a couple of guys that can play tackle or guard. So I think it starts there, and then again with the defensive front, you know, we needed size. We needed some big guys, and I think we were able to do that. You know, with the number of defensive tackles that we brought in. The 2 junior college players that we secured about a week and a half ago, those guys were really, really important to this recruiting class. They're both 300 pounds plus. They both have a lot of experience playing college football. They're physical, they're athletic, they're exactly what you want at that position. The high school players are the same way. Just fired up about those guys. I mean, they're big, they're physical, they move well. It's a great place to start. And then, you've got to go out and always got to address the need at defensive back. I thought we signed 3 really big-time corners that have great length, that can run, that are competitive. 3 high school guys and then a JC guy. So excited about that group as well.
Coach, was recruiting Sherwood pretty easy? Was that more of a...
Well, it was recruiting John was probably easier just because Adam had, committed to Oklahoma State. And so it kind of took a series of events for the thing to happen with Adam. It's funny the way quarterback recruiting works sometimes. A lot of it has to do with, okay, who do you see and who do you see first and all that kind of thing. And so, the thing that I love about recruiting, Adam and John both was that, you could see pretty clearly on, obviously, how much TCU meant to their family, and just what this university meant to them. I think we probably made a mistake on Adam the first go around, and maybe didn't evaluate him as well as we should have, and that was my fault. And then as we watched more tape and got to know him better and watched him through his senior year, it was pretty obvious that he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. I mean, he's just got the size, the arm strength, the ability, and most importantly, the character that you need at that position. And John's exactly what you want at that hybrid position. I mean, he can rush the passer, he's relentless, he's tough, he plays like his dad, and that's what you want. And so it was fun recruiting those guys. I mean, I got to learn a lot about TCU football and hear some great stories, and had a lot of fun just recruiting them. I mean, it's been a blast recruiting the Schobel family. Those guys are like TCU royalty, and excited to, for the next generation.
I don't know if you've ever done this before when you were on different staffs, but do you ever go back and look at recruiting classes 4 and 5 years ago?
Oh, always. Yeah, we always that's an obsession in some ways of mine, is to go back and, we do the same thing. In today's world too, we go back and we track guys that have left the program from a transfer standpoint. And so it's interesting. You're always going back and trying to learn from things that worked or didn't work, and why they worked and why didn't this happen, and and all the things. And so we do, like I said, I'm kind of in a weird sort of way obsessed with that to a degree where you go back and you look at guys you signed and you go, okay, why didn't this work? And you go, okay, maybe it was something we didn't do right, maybe we misevaluated, maybe we didn't provide the opportunities for growth that we should have, maybe we signed the wrong kind of kid. And sometimes you change offensive or defensive philosophy, and some guys get lost in the shuffle. And so anyway, yeah, I do it all the time, and it's something that we try to learn from. Past mistakes or past things that didn't work, and try to right those wrongs. And so I'm constantly going back and looking at that stuff.
The reason I ask is because with the creation of the transfer portal now, has it totally, wrecked that evaluation process? Because guys now, you have 25 guys here, and I would imagine the percentages of these guys staying or hitting back.
Yeah, my guess is of these 25 guys, my hope is 22, 23 of them stay. I mean, that's the kind of program that we want here. You know what I mean? And we've been fortunate. We've lost very few players to the transfer portal that we did not want to lose. You know what I mean? Typically, when someone has left our program in the past, hadn't always been the case, but for the most part, it's been guys that needed to get a fresh start somewhere, and probably weren't contributing to the level that they wanted to. Maybe some guys that had got a little bit disenfranchised. And so sometimes when that happens, it's better for everybody to just kind of move on. And so, our hope is that trend continues. we're lucky, and I told our coaches this the other day. Our job is to create an environment where, number one, our players enjoy coming to work every day. When they walk in the building, they know they're going to get coached hard. They know they're going to be held to a very high standard. They know they're going to be held accountable, but they know they're going to be cared about. They know we're going to have their best interest in heart. They're going to be pushed and prodded and coached hard with the idea that we're going to give them everything they have so that they can become the best version of themselves as a player, as a person, as a student. And at the end of the day, I think these guys know that we care about them, not just as football players, but as people. And I think that means a lot to those players. I think they also know that they're going to get the very best of everything here at TCU. The best nutrition, the best supplementation, the best strength and conditioning, the best academic help that they can get. And they're going to get to do it in Fort Worth, Texas, which I think is one of the greatest places to live in the country, and at an institution that takes an unbelievable amount of pride in taking care of their students. And I mean, this school is different. There's not many schools out there that care about the students like TCU does. And I think it's very, very obvious to the students that go here, not just student athletes, but just the regular students, how unique and how different this place is, because I've never been anywhere like this, where you have a chancellor in Victor Bashini that's walking the campus every day and wanting to know about the quality of life for just the students that go to school here. And that just doesn't happen anywhere else. And so our guys understand how lucky they are to be here, just like I understand how lucky I am to be here. This place is not like every other place. And I think when you factor all those things that I just discussed in, most of these players are going to want to stick around. Now, there's going to be some that don't. There's got some that lose jobs, and some that get out recruited, and some that don't develop, and some that get homesick and all that stuff. But our goal is to, if 20 of these 25 guys don't finish at TCU, then I think we've done something wrong.
Coach, we're running a story on Ed Small.
Yep.
What were your first impressions of him, and what do you think he'll bring to this program?
Well, I first saw Ed 2 years ago. He came to our football camp, and we had all these highly, highly rated receivers there. And Ed, quite frankly, physically didn't look like much. He wasn't real tall. He didn't look like he was real fast. When he started playing football, he was the best player. It wasn't even close. And so, I fell in love with him as a player and as a person at that camp 2 years ago. He was incredibly competitive. Every rep was really, really important to him, just the way he competed, his maturity, his ball skills, his understanding of how to run routes. And then you look at him, he had almost 4,000 yards receiving in his high school career. He's a district MVP. Just one of those guys that is cut from the Wes Welker, Danny Amendola cloth, and some guys that we've had in the past. Probably the J.P. Richardson. We've been fortunate to have some guys that played in the slot that have been really productive guys that are really understand the game and take a lot of pride in their performance. Darius Davis is another that comes to mind that kind of is that same type of player. And so we're really excited about him. And like I said, I love guys that produce, and no one produces at a higher level than Ed Small. The guy just makes plays. He's competitive. You know exactly what you're going to get every single day. And man, that's incredibly valuable.
Coach, in this day and age of the transfer portal, you guys still went out and got 4 JUCO guys, and people might question, well, why you go JUCO instead of transfer? But what was it about those guys that just made you guys as staff know you couldn't pass them up?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think in some ways, you look at the 4 junior college players we got, I think they were all vastly under-recruited. I think to me, the junior colleges in some ways have become kind of the forgotten guys in a lot of ways. And so to be able to go and get 2 defensive tackles of the quality that we got from the junior colleges, those guys are very, very difficult to find. If you took those 2 players as 4-year transfers, the competition for those guys would be, heavy. and quite frankly, in today's world, those guys would be very, very expensive, when it comes to NIL stuff now. So, the thing with our program, and you're going to hear stuff like this, which is kind of bizarre to talk about, but I mean, there's value there. We feel like we got really, really good players for they felt like they were a good value, and we feel like that they have a chance to be really, really good players, and so that's kind of was important to us. And then to get a safety in a corner as well was huge. So they're all guys that have a lot of have played some college football, but they're all going to be a little bit green. And the good thing is they're all going to be here in January and ready to roll. So fired up about that group.
You mentioned wide receiver was going to be a position of need for you guys. How significant was it to flip a guy like Terry Shelton so late in the process?
Yeah, I mean, look, Terry Shelton, is exactly what you want. If you say, okay, you're going to start with a wide receiver physically, I mean, he's got great length. If I'm not mistaken, I think he led the state in rebounding last year in basketball. He knows how to go get the ball, whether it's a basketball off the rim or a football in the air. He's highly competitive. He's got great speed. He's just one of those guys that the upside is very, very, very high for him. And so that was a big flip for us. I mean, he was kind of the guy that we targeted pretty early on. And, Malcolm, I thought, did a really nice job of just staying in there and hanging in there with him. And we were fortunate to get him to come our way.
One of those, you talk about the guys you hope don't get ranked higher, and the name that always pops up to me is Killian out of Keller. What are your thoughts on him and what he brings to the table?
Man, I love him. He's, like you said, I mean, kind of flew under the radar this year a little bit. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, he just plays the game the way it's supposed to be played. Plays incredibly hard. When you meet him, he's a really kind of soft-spoken, quiet guy, but he goes out there and he plays really loud, and he's aggressive and physical, and he's got great size and strength, and, I'm very excited about him. I mean, you just don't see many guys that are as athletic as he is that have the bulk and strength, and he finishes plays. He likes to plays the position kind of nasty and mean, which is what you want with offensive linemen, and so really fired up about him.
What's the 4-game cushion for true freshmen? Do you envision some of these guys?
Yeah, I envision that kind of going away, honestly. I think what we're going to end up with, and I'm hoping, is that you got 5 years to play. I'm hoping that's the model that the NCAA adapts. From what I hear, that's the way it's headed. And that way you're not going to have, a ninth-year player like we had this year in college football. You know what I mean? That got, 4 injury years back somehow or whatever. You have five years to play. You can play. I think that number one helps with guys graduating and graduation rates, which again, we don't talk about it much, but that's why they're here, is to get a degree and to graduate, improve their quality and their family's quality of life. The second thing is it just makes sense. That takes the waiver process away from the NCAA, which decreases their possibility for litigation, makes it clean. You don't have to worry about some silly number of games now. A guy comes in, he's got 5 years, and I think what that does is create value for good college football players at the end of their career. They may not be NFL players, but they're going to have value. And I think that's going to allow them to make some money and hopefully, take some of that money when they transition into a normal life outside of football. And so I think that would be a great thing to happen, and I anticipate that happening. And so, I think these guys probably will be the first group that's the 5 years. At least that's my hope.
Chad Wolford's ranked top 10 edge rusher by most sites. I guess how big was his career?
Yeah, Chad was big. I mean, the big thing with Chad is he jumped on the boat early, and jumped in early. Everybody in the country came after him. He stayed with us. Really appreciative of his, and I think in a lot of ways he was kind of the backbone of the recruiting class, just because he was a heavily rated edge rusher. Those guys are hard to find. Guys with his length and his athleticism, his production. He's a winner. When you sit down and you look at this group overall, a number of these guys are still in the playoffs. We're recruiting kids that come from winning programs, which I think is really, really important. They know how to win. They know what it takes to win. They're accustomed to winning. And I think that set those guys up for a tremendous amount of success. We want to have winners in our program. And like I said, you just go down this list and, most of these teams made the playoffs and several of them are deep in a playoff run right now.
So if they made you college football czar for a minute, and you could line up a calendar so kids would be, because we're seeing kids transfer now, and Anson will tend to transfer before the season's even over, right?
Yeah.
Is there any way to line that?
Yeah, to me, I think here's kind of my take on it. And there's coaches, everybody's got an opinion on this. You know what I'm saying, which is interesting. You know how it is, and sometimes when you have your opinion, you don't understand how anybody could see it any differently. And I've had some conversations with some of my colleagues, and I don't really understand their way of thinking, and they probably don't understand mine completely. And everybody takes their interest and applies that as well, because every school has different strengths and weaknesses, and is better served by this way than another way. To me, you ought to play the season. There's going to be some guys that are disappointed or may want this or may want that. Having that opportunity to stay through the spring and kind of let some things fall into place, I think would really serve the student athletes well, because they wouldn't make emotional decisions. What happens a lot of times is kids have a real clear understanding of, okay, this is the plan in the future, this is the way it's going to be. Well, then they go home for the holidays and they go talk to their uncle or their cousin or their parent or whomever, or their neighbor who doesn't really understand their situation and says, well, you ought to do this, why don't you do this? And these are young people and they're easily influenced, especially by adults. And sometimes these adults don't really understand the entire situation. And so that happens sometimes. Guys go home for Christmas happy, come back and they're not happy. And you're not quite sure what happened. And so to me, if you could make the transfer portal in May, that makes the most sense to me. That way, if you go to an institution, you're at least there for a year and you can let some things play out. And at least you have a clear vision of, okay, here's where I stand. Here's the opportunity that's available to me. And I think to me that gives everybody the best chance to really truly get an evaluation of what's the school like, what's the player like, is this a good fit?
So you talking like a 2-week window beginning?
Yeah, 2-week window in May, a month window in May, whatever it is. To me that's kind of, I think that makes the most sense. Now people will make arguments for it to be in December. I think everybody's got an opinion, but that to me makes the most sense.
John Denman, it seemed like every time y'all tweeted about him, we got our guy.
Yeah.
That was the tag, but what are your thoughts on him? And I know there had to be some other programs that came.
Yeah, I know everybody was coming in on John. Yeah, John, he's what we want at the running back position. He's a physical guy that runs hard, that finishes runs, that's explosive. That's the cool thing about him, is that he's elusive, he's explosive, he's fast, but he's a finisher. He's physical. And I think that's what makes the great running backs great. You look around the league and there's 5 or 6 really, really elite running backs in this league, and they all have one thing in common: they know how to finish runs. And I think John does for sure. And so we were fortunate to get him on board, to hold on to him. He's a guy that I think will come in the door and from day one and compete. At least that's my hope, and we'll see how it plays out.
Anything else for Coach?
Can I ask a non-recruiting question?
You can, yeah, for sure.
How pleased are you with the way the season?
Yeah. Really proud of our players for finishing the way they did. We were 3-3. It didn't look very good. And we hadn't played well. We had 3 games where we turned the ball over 12 times in 3 games, which is kind of unprecedented almost in history of football. But we managed to get through it and survive it, and really proud of our guys for hanging together and fighting and believing and doing things the right way. We presented a plan going into the open week against Utah and said, here's what we need to do to win. And our players jumped right on board, and they did everything we asked them to do, and it gave us a chance to win every game the rest of the season. We won 5 of 6, lost 1 on a last-second field goal. We were -10 in turnover ratio at that point in the season. The next 6 games we were +4, and so they did exactly what we asked them to do, and really proud of the guys. I think they showed a lot of character and who they are. That doesn't happen if they're not unselfish, and they don't love each other and care about each other and care about TCU football. So, wish we wouldn't have had that tough stretch in the middle of the season. There were 2 games that came down to a field goal. If those games go our way, we're probably sitting here in the college football playoff, or certainly in the Big 12 championship game. But there's a number of teams that could say that same thing. And so a lot of parity in the Big 12 this year, a lot of close ball games. We got to continue to focus on winning those games and addressing the reasons we didn't and figuring out what we can do better to win all of them. Because the difference really is very small. 2022 we were 7-1 in one-score games, and that took us to a Big 12 championship game and ultimately an opportunity to win a national championship. And so we've got to get back to winning those close games consistently.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you guys, man. Appreciate y'all.